Introducing Korean broadcast content that you won't be able to stop watching. For weary modern souls, Dr. Romantic, the quirky genius doctor of Puldam Hospital, prescribes heartwarming tales of humanity. A couple together for 7 years sees their rose-tinted glasses shatter. Can they keep their relationship alive? Discover the raw stories of youth, work, and love. Beyond what social media can show, experience the vibrant Korea through its hidden gems. Mama, the ultimate K-pop festival for global fans. Find your star in a feast of trendy music and electrifying performances. Now, the whole world enjoys it together.
South Korea's benchmark KOSPI surpassed the 5,000 mark for the first time in its history, as trading opened on Thursday fueled by strong gains in auto and tech shares. The country's economy grew 1% last year despite strong exports, as it slipped into negative on-quarter growth in the final 3 months of the year. South Korea has become the first country to fully enforce a comprehensive AI law, introducing strict oversight and transparency rules to boost competitiveness while protecting the public. South Korea's benchmark KOSPI earlier on Thursday broke through the 5,000 mark for the first time ever. For more, we have our economic correspondent Kim Junong on the line from the Korea Exchange. Junong, what does this mean and how are the scenes so far at the Korea Exchange?
Yes, Haeryun, as you said, for the first time in history, South Korea's benchmark KOSPI surpassed the 5,000 mark this morning. This is, of course, an uncharted territory for the nation's stock markets. And while the momentum was there, many here are surprised that it reached the milestone this quickly. As for the latest, as of 11:58 a.m., the KOSPI is at 5,003.41. It only took the market 1 minute to pass the 5,000 mark after opening at around 4,980. Keep in mind, this comes just 3 months after KOSPI closed above 4,000 level for the first time ever. Despite net selling by foreign and institutional investors, the index surged on strong buying from retail investors alone. Gains have been expected after a rally in U.S. stocks overnight, but the KOSPI's rapid move about the 5,000 mark still caught many by surprise. Wall Street jumped after Donald Trump eased tariff threats against the EU, and that optimism is now spilling over into the Korean stock market. Heavyweight stocks are driving the gains. Samsung Electronics rose more than 3% in early trading, briefly reaching 150,000 won, while SK Hynix also climbed to near a record high. With the KOSPI setting a new intraday record, attention is now on whether it will also close at a fresh high. I'll bring you updates after the close at 3:30. Back to you, Haeryun.
Thank you for your report, Junong. South Korea's real gross domestic product saw a rise of 1% last year, matching preliminary central bank estimates. According to data released Thursday by the Bank of Korea, real GDP grew 1.5% year-on-year in the fourth quarter of 2025, a drop of 0.3% from Q3, reflecting modest economic expansion amid mixed sector performance. On the expenditure side, exports continue to grow, while private consumption and government spending both expanded. However, the decline in construction investment deepened, weighing on overall growth. On the production side, service sector growth strengthened, but manufacturing growth slowed, and construction activity contracted further. Meanwhile, real domestic income increased 1.7%, slightly outpacing GDP growth. South Korea has officially put its new AI Basic Act into effect as of Thursday. The government calls it the world's first comprehensive legal framework for artificial intelligence to become fully operational. Kim Do-yeon reports on the new rules and the mixed reaction from the industry.
South Korea's Framework Act on Artificial Intelligence Law has come into effect. Starting Thursday, the country becomes the first in the world to fully enforce a comprehensive legal AI regulatory framework. Passed in 2024, the law's goal is to both boost national competitiveness in AI and protect the public. One of the most critical aspects of the new rules is the high-impact AI designation. If an AI system is used in critical fields like healthcare, energy, hiring, or loan approvals, it faces strict oversight. Operators must have human managers in the loop and report their safety measures to the government. Transparency is also mandatory. Companies must now clearly label AI-generated content, including through tools like watermarking, so users know what they're looking at. The measures are now in a testing phase, so it will take some time for the results to become clear.
I mean, the big risk really is this. If the regulations are a bit too burdensome, then the question is, can the Korean government then adjust these regulations so that these AI companies are not going to be hindered with respect to the development because they're competing with other players globally, right? Like OpenAI, like other companies beyond the domestic market.
But startups and smaller firms are worried. They argue that complying with these complex safety and labeling rules requires money and manpower they just don't have. Recognizing this burden, the government is promising a soft landing. The Ministry of Science and ICT says it will suspend fines and investigations for at least 1 year.
But I think Korea being a first mover, I think is shaping the policy now going forward for a lot of countries who will now, I think, benchmark Korea's rules and see how they play out for their own regulatory systems.
They're also setting up a support desk to help companies figure out how to follow the new rules. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Wednesday, US President Donald Trump says diplomacy, not military force, will guide his push for US control of Greenland as he moves to ease tensions with Europe. Lee Seung-jae has more.
President Donald Trump has signaled a major shift in his controversial push to bring Greenland under U.S. control, backing away from the use of military force while continuing to press his case diplomatically. Speaking Wednesday at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump reiterated his belief that Greenland, a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, must fall under U.S. control for global and American security.
You know, when I see what's happening with Greenland, I wonder, because I want Greenland for security. I don't want it for anything else. We have so much rare earth, we don't know what to do with it. We don't need it for anything else.
Trump acknowledged that the United States could theoretically take the island through overwhelming military power, but stressed he would not do so. At the same time, Trump announced that he was canceling a planned round of tariffs on 8 European countries that oppose his proposal for Greenland. The decision followed talks with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, which Trump described as highly productive. Just days earlier, Trump had threatened to impose a 10% tariff on goods from Britain, France, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, and Finland starting February 1st, with rates rising to 25% by June if no deal was reached on what he called a complete U.S. purchase of Greenland. In a social media post, Trump said he and NATO leadership had established a framework for a future agreement covering Greenland and the broader Arctic region, calling it beneficial for both the United States and NATO allies. Despite the rollback on tariffs, tensions remain high. The European Parliament formally suspended ratification of a U.S. trade deal on Wednesday in protest, calling Trump's earlier tariff threats political blackmail. European lawmakers say negotiations will not resume until those threats are fully withdrawn. 이 승재, Arirang News.
Former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo has been sentenced to 23 years in prison, 8 years more than the 15-year term sought by the special prosecution for his role in former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law declaration. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin reports.
Seoul Central District Court sentenced former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo to 23 years in prison on Wednesday for aiding an insurrection.
The defendant is sentenced to 23 years in prison. The case concerning the use of a falsely prepared official document is dismissed.
This marks the judiciary's first ruling that states that the December 3rd martial law declaration constituted the crime of insurrection under the Criminal Act. According to the ruling, Han's role as a prime minister vested him with democratic legitimacy and responsibility. Yet he abandoned his constitutional duty to uphold the Constitution and the rule of law and to keep in check the president's arbitrary use of power. The bench also criticized him for choosing to participate as a member of the insurrection and noted that his actions could have pushed South Korea back into a dark era where fundamental rights and democracy were jeopardized, potentially trapping the country in a prolonged authoritarian regime and irreversible trauma and loss for the public. Following the verdict, the court conducted a separate hearing to determine whether Han should be taken into custody and ordered his immediate detention, citing concerns over the destruction of evidence. The ruling came 4 months after Han Duck-soo's trial began in September last year. Prosecutors argued that Han, as the second highest official in state affairs, was aware of such unconstitutional plans, yet aligned himself with the declaration by giving it the procedural appearance of having been reviewed by a quorum of the cabinet. Han is also accused of signing a revised martial law proclamation to remedy legal defects in the original declaration and subsequently ordering its disposal. This marks the first time in South Korea's constitutional history that a former prime minister has been taken into custody from a courtroom. The ruling is expected to have significant implications not only for the ongoing trial of former President Yoon on insurrection charges, but also for cases involving other former cabinet members. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's antitrust regulator has imposed its first ever sanctions for collusion involving loan-to-value ratios, finding the country's 4 major commercial banks a combined $183.7 million. Cho Young-eun has this report.
The Korea Fair Trade Commission said Wednesday that it fined the country's 4 largest commercial banks, KB Kookmin, Shinhan, Hana, and Uri, a combined 272 billion won, or $183.7 million for colluding on real estate lending limits tied to loan-to-value ratios. Together, the 4 banks account for roughly 60% of South Korea's mortgage market. And the commission said their coordinated limits on LTV ratios significantly curtails consumers' ability to choose among lenders. The commission concluded that the bank's coordinated real estate lending restrictions between 2022 and 2024 violated the Monopoly Regulation and Fair Trade Act.
The bank's combined related interest revenue was around 6.8 trillion won. The fine ranks among the largest ever imposed by the commission.
According to the KFTC, the 4 banks exchanged printed documents through Excel files containing LTV information in nearly 7,500 recorded cases. Data showed that in 2023, the average LTV ratio offered by the 4 banks was 7.5 percentage points lower than that of non-colluding banks, and the gap widened to 8.8 percentage points for non-residential properties closely tied to corporate lending. The impact was particularly severe for small and mid-sized enterprises, which often have lower credit ratings and face greater difficulty receiving unsecured loans or additional collateral.
We believe that the biggest problem is that small and medium-sized enterprises and small business owners are facing difficulties because they are unable to secure the funding they need in light of the current economic conditions.
The case marks the first enforcement under a revised fair trade law that took effect in December 2021, which introduced a new provision banning collusion through the exchange of sensitive business information. 조영은, Arirang News.
A wildfire burning in Busan's Kijanggun has been 90% contained as of Thursday morning, with the main fire extinguished with the help of 340 firefighters overnight. Authorities significantly ramped up their response to the fire that started in a factory the day before, deploying 17 helicopters. Personnel are fighting through the coldest weather of the season, with temperatures hitting a season low of -7.1 degrees Celsius and strong winds of up to 15 meters per second forecast for the afternoon. Over in Gwangyang, Jeollanam province, firefighters also fought overnight and fully put out a fire that burned an area equivalent in size to around 70 football fields, forcing over 100 residents to evacuate. That fire started on Wednesday afternoon and 26 helicopters were deployed to extinguish it. Korean music label HYBE's US-based girl group Katseye is set to perform at the 2026 Grammy Awards as a Best New Artist nominee. The group is among 8 nominees set to take the stage at the ceremony on February 1st at the Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles, according to the Recording Academy, the organization behind the Grammys, on Wednesday US time. Formed through HYBE's global audition project Dream Academy, Katseye debuted in the US in 2024 and gained attention after entering Billboard's Hot 100. The group recently released its new single, Internet Girl. The Academy said additional performance will be announced later.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. The U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday signaled it will likely allow Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook to stay in her job while she fights President Donald Trump's attempt to fire her. Trump previously told Cook she was fired over mortgage fraud allegations, which Cook denies. No president has ever fired a sitting Fed governor in the central bank's 112-year history. Several justices pressed the administration on why it gave Cook no formal notice or hearing, and multiple justices voiced skepticism about letting a president remove Fed officials without meaningful limits and how this could impact the Fed's independence. The court expects a decision by early summer. Meanwhile, Trump said on Wednesday in Davos that he was close to choosing a new Fed chair, adding he would prefer to keep White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett in his current role, as he called BlackRock bond manager Rick Rieder, quote, very impressive. Trump and his aides have also named Fed Governor Christopher Waller and former Fed Governor Kevin Warsh as candidates. Iranian state television has admitted for the first time that security forces killed more than 3,000 people during recent anti-government protests. Iranian state TV on Wednesday issued its first official death toll from recent protests through statements by the Interior Ministry and Iran's Martyrs Foundation. It said 3,117 people were killed, adding that 2,427 of the dead were civilians and security forces, without detailing the rest. Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned in a Wall Street Journal op-ed that Iran will, quote, fire back with everything we have if it faces attack, as the U.S. Navy is currently moving the USS Abraham Lincoln Career Strike Group toward the Middle East. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang says trillions of dollars in new investment is needed to support the global artificial intelligence boom. During talks with BlackRock CEO Larry Fink at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Wednesday, Huang dismissed fears of an AI bubble, saying the opportunity is extraordinary, even if investment totals look massive. The Nvidia chief declared this is the largest infrastructure build-out in history, history, urging Europe and global industries to aggressively expand energy supplies and data centers to capture the technology's economic benefits. On jobs, he argued demand can rise even as AI spreads. Prince Harry fought back tears in a London courtroom on Wednesday while accusing the Daily Mail of making his wife Meghan Markle's life an absolute misery. The Duke of Sussex and 6 other claimants, including singer Elton John, are suing publisher Associated Newspapers over alleged privacy violations dating from the 1990s to the 2010s. The lawsuit alleges unlawful information gathering such as voicemail hacking, phone bugging, and deception. Associated Newspapers called the accusations preposterous smears and said its reporters relied on legitimate sources. Harry described the legal battle as traumatic, but a public duty to hold the media responsible, telling the court that intrusive tabloid tactics have only worsened since he launched his lawsuit in 2022. 주지한, 아리랑 뉴스.
A powerful cold wave continues to grip the country, with cold weather alerts being expanded and upgraded nationwide. This morning was the peak of this cold spell. It felt like minus 20 degrees Celsius here in the capital, and the sharp wind was biting my face even with a face mask on. Korea is going through some harsh winter days this week. Meanwhile, heavy snow continues along the west coast of Jeollado and parts of Jeju Island. Ulleungdo, Dokdo could receive up to 15 centimeters of heavy snowfall. Mountainous areas of Jeju Island and west coast of Jeollado might get up to 7 centimeters, so please use extra caution on the roads. And this afternoon's Seoul and Daejeon will be getting up to minus 5 degrees Celsius. Busan topping out at 2 degrees Celsius. Dry weather alerts remain in place across the eastern regions. And this intense cold wave will persist through Sunday, so please plan accordingly and stay safe.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.